Well, good morning. This is the June 1st virtual monthly reading featuring Joanne Durham and Derek Kannemeyer this month. Our third reader is in the hospital ill, so she will not read today, but we hope that she'll recover soon and will read in the fall sometime, October. Our first feature, Joanne Durham, is the author of To Drink from a Wider Bowl, winner of the 2021 Sinclair Poetry Prize from Evening Street Press. And it was released April 1st, 2022. And that's no fooling, I'm sure. Her chapbook on Shifting Shoals will be published by Kelsey Books. Her poetry appears or is forthcoming in Poetry South, Poetry East, Calyx, Chautauqua, Gyroscope Review, and many other journals and anthologies. She lives on the North Carolina coast with the ocean as her backyard and muse. For more about her background, publications, and awards, you can visit her website at https://www.joannedurham.com. Okay, take it away.
Thank you so much, Ravi. A big thanks to Jim Lewis, even though he's not here, and First Virtual for the opportunity to read today. And also I see some familiar faces in your little Zoom boxes, so I really appreciate the support of friends and fellow poets and longtime friends who are out there. Thanks a lot for coming. I'm going to read today a few poems from To Drink from a Wider Bowl, and also one poem that I've written more recently. As Robbie said, my book was just published, and I was a little worried about the April Fool's date also, but everything went pretty smoothly. I've been writing poetry my whole life, but I didn't really start working on publishing it or sharing it or really studying it until the last few years. So when I did put out this book, I had a lot of material from a lot of phases of my life. And so the book turned out to be kind of a memoir in poetry, with a lot of poetic license taken on the facts. And it's a memoir not only of my personal life, but I think with my connections with the world around me, the wider bowl, I guess you could say, of my experiences. So I'm going to start with the book is organized more or less chronologically. The first section deals with my ancestors and childhood, and so I want to read a poem called My Mother's Kitchen. Of course, I thought my mathematician dad was the source of my school smarts, those A's first grade through grad school. Yet here in my uncle's memoirs, Lillian, the funny sister, and Clara, the smart one. Clara, my mother, who soothed hurt feelings like she ironed wrinkles from my father's shirts, but never went to college, started work in the bargain basement at 15, pretending she was 20, married and escaped into homemaking, led Girl Scout camping trips and baked chocolate chip cookies. I mocked her in my teenage years for how ardently she redid the kitchen in a palette of mauve and faux fern. The smart one. All that time I was satisfied with a simple language, and now I know I needed one with 20 words for snow, or one that smelled mother 6 different ways. And I'm sitting again at her kitchen table. That morning she mused about the gifted class she loved in 2nd grade. But they moved for the 3rd time, and anyway, she tells me, she was just a little girl. Then she folds her yellow folded apron and steps aside, as she always did, to let everyone else's life parade across the crowded pavement, while she smiled and waved and cheered us on. There's a section in my book called Love Songs and Lullabies, so I'd like to read a couple of poems from that section. Traction. Rain slams against the glass faster than wipers can open an eye hole, and we're still going 80, deeper into darkness on Route 378 out of Sumter, heading home. I ask him to slow down, but his foot is heavy on the pedal and my words are weightless. Then we spin a 360, hydroplane across 2 lanes and head towards a thicket of live oaks steep above a ravine. The last seconds before we'll crash widen like time's dilated pupil. We reach for each other's hand, and I breathe my whole body into our fingers' steady lock. Then we hit the barrier we couldn't see in the downpour, bounce back across the highway onto the wide grassy cushion on the other side. A semi rumbles by, but we're bystanders now. We get out and walk around our truck to look for damage, rain licking our faces like a puppy, delirious that we're home. I know this night's going to lift us a while, above who won't listen, who's too quick to judge. When we lost traction, when there was nothing to guide us but the white flash of instinct, all we wanted was to make it or not together. Under construction. Loader, excavator, backhoe, creaking toy wheels across the couch's cushions. My 2-year-old teaches me the vocabulary of construction. He drums the sofa's arm to a beat in his head, abandons it to circle himself dizzy, tips the pink teapot so imaginary tea gurgles into the cup. His laughter curls like steam. Polka-dotted apron sweeping his ankles, brow creased, he steers the wooden spoon to chase clouds of flour into the bowl, plops sticky biscuits into the pan. No one has lined him up yet, boys on one side, girls on the other. Fragments of light twist through his cardboard kaleidoscope, spinning images of everything he could become.
Lovely. Mhm. Like that.
Thank you. Another section of my book is called Unclosed Eyes, and I wrote a lot of poems about the many years I spent as a teacher, and also about the world around me and being an activist for many years for peace and justice. This poem was written a number of years ago, but unfortunately is still quite relevant today. Brothers in Arms Valentine's Day gun sale, advertised in the island sun. In a world where young men in prison explain they didn't plan to kill, they were just angry and the gun was there. In a world where guns are always there, a world that isn't the world, but a small piece of world that believes guns belong everywhere. In a small piece of world trying so hard to protect smallness, where you only belong if you look like me, live like me, hate like me. In that small piece of world, a gun can become a Valentine. And on a somewhat more hopeful note, this poem is called Maps. Every home needs a map of the world. Hang it by the entrance. Bless it as you might a cross or a mezuzah when you come and go. Trace your finger across continents not your own. Say names of countries whose sounds tickle your throat and move your lips differently from your own language. Be curious about who lives there, sharing seas and stars. Hope to meet them, fellow Earth dwellers, all calling this planet home.
Nice.
A number of my poems are inspired by my grandkids. And so this one is called Buying a Globe for My Grandson During the Pandemic. He can't comprehend how north means anything but sky, thinks south is underground. So I search online. Elephants trumpet across Tanzania on talking globes. The Eiffel Tower illuminates all of Europe. Customer reviews dim the flashy displays. Irate Indian buyers, their birthplace mapped as China. Americans demand borders between states, not shown on any other country. Globes crack in careless hands. One globe arrived with 2 southern hemispheres. The owner thought it an improvement, didn't send it back. I long for a brick and mortar store to know if names of distant rivers are large enough to read. Feel the relief of the Himalayas. Spin tilted stands to test their resilience. Lands joined in a blue blur. I'm not giving up the search for a perfect world for my grandson. This is the final poem in To Drink from a Wider Bowl. It's called Sunrise Sonnet for My Son. My son unloads the dishwasher first thing each morning. I think of him 400 miles away. So as I stand on tiptoe to shelve last night's wine glasses, stack my mother's dessert plates, open the drawer beneath the oven, just deep enough for all the pots and pans. He says for him, too, it's a kind of meditation. This routine he and his wife have shaped into the contours of a shared life, fluted and spacious as the overflowing fruit bowl. This is what he possesses, not Lenox or Waterford, which neither of us owns. This man I raised, who hums as he sorts the silverware, noticing how each spoon shines. I'd like to finish with a poem that I wrote in the last few weeks that was published in on Verse Virtual in the June issue. And it's not the most hopeful thing in the world, but it's the world we live in. Putting your 4-year-old to bed the night of another elementary school mass shooting. Of course, you don't tell him, and he's young enough, he won't know. So you laugh a little louder when he slurps his spaghetti at dinner and let him dawdle putting away his trains. You trace the fine blend of flesh and muscle of his ears as the washcloth slides behind him in the bathtub. You wrap him in his rocket ship towel, his pink child smell too sweet to bear, and want to hold him there, grounded to this spot forever. He lets you sing him the lullaby that sometimes he says is too sad, and you wonder what sad means to him. Your voice breaks at "Don't be afraid," because the fear that is baked into being a parent clogs your throat. When he asks for a train song, you make one up about a distant whistle coming closer and watch his face ease into dreams, tucked safely in the caboose. You can't call this leaden mass that is your body grief. That belongs to those whose bathtubs are empty tonight, whose towels hang dry and useless on their hooks. But anger knifes deep through your skin. Rage leaks from every wound. The madness is so big, he so small. Thank you very much for the opportunity and for those of you who've come today. As Robbie said, my book is available through Evening Street Press. There's also a whole bunch of interviews and blurbs and reviews and other online readings on my author page at Evening Street. And I'll put that link in the chat and also on my website. So thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to hearing Derek read. He and I met through Verse Virtual, and he was kind enough to write one of the blurbs for my book. So I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a minute. Thank you very much, Joanne. That was a beautiful set. And thank you for letting me know you were available to read. So our final feature today is Derek Kannemeyer. Derek has an interesting background. He's a South African-born Brit from Richmond, Virginia, where he spent 35 years as a teacher of French and English. His books since retiring from high school include The Play of Gilgamesh, Unsay Their Names, which is nonfiction and photography, Mutt Spirituals, and The Memory Addicts, which is a novel. 50 of the Unsay Their Names photographs documenting the fall from grace of Richmond's Lost Cause statuary became the fall 2021 exhibition at Virginia's Black History Museum. Wow, if I ever make it back to Richmond, I will go and have a look at that. It's still there. So thank you so much for making yourself available. And with that, I introduce you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Robbie. And thank you, Joanne, especially for suggesting that I could read with you. And thanks to Jim and for everybody who's here. If you do go to the Black History Museum, they did keep several of the photographs. The exhibition came down in December of last year. It was up for 3 months, but I don't know if they've put any of them back on display yet. Who knows? Who knows? They will. I'm just going to start. Come live with me and be my love. We'll buy a red brick house on Grove with tall mimosa trees that spill their cool scents round our bedroom sill. And side by side on the settee, we'll light a read or watch TV and cheek to cheek and toe to toe dance to the clear, bright stereo. Or arm in arm, walk out by dark to feed those fat geese in Bird Park and peek through the Edwardian bay windows of the lovely fan. Each day before we rise for work, as shrill alarm clocks shriek berserk rondos to tune us to the pitch we mostly live at, I will reach my long arms round in an embrace imprinted with sleep's quietness, which you may wear the whisper of till dusk as token of our love. And I will bring you wine and roses and 2 black kittens with white noses, and Sundays from the coffee bar, breakfasts of pain au chocolat. Give me your hand. I know the rain is murmuring at the window pane, and pretty phrases, couplet rhymed, won't cut it, will they? Not this time. But all these futures in your palm, I'll fold in mine to cradle warm, and all my promises begin from this first warm, small fact of skin. This blind man's map we read by feel, relearning what is and isn't real, stripped bare of the protective glove. Come live with me. Come be my love. That's a Richmond poem, full of Richmond references, and it was written in the mid-80s, as a matter of fact. It's part of a long tradition of poems responding to the original Come Live With Me poem. And I often get a kick out of doing something like that. It didn't make it into my book, Mutt Spirituals, which I will read from later, but I'm going to start off by reading some things which didn't make it into that book, which are that one and this next one are in my next manuscript, which is called Sort by Title, but they didn't fit in Mutt Spirituals. Anyway, This is called mission. As I slept, God came to me with a mission. He asked me to renounce my worldly goods, to dwell among the poor and minister them. And in my dream, I answered saying, Lord, what a wonderful dream. Imagine to be someone the Lord might come to with a mission. But Lord, I'm a humble poet of no great consequence, so I know this is a dream. And in my dream, God thought for a moment and answered, fair enough. Which in the morning I remembered, telling my friends and chuckling. That afternoon, a dog ran up to me. He barked, and it was in English. Tonight, when I come again, have faith. And that night, as I slept, God came with a different mission. Go to a place of war and famine and help its people. How and where you may choose, for the need is great. Preach to them my message. And in my dream, I answered, saying, God, you're making fun of me. You're a street dog now, addressing me in language? You wait till I'm stupid with sleep, then change my mission, but are fuzzy on the particulars? I'm only a humble poet, Lord, but a voice so wishy-washy can't be yours. Which God considered and said, fair enough. The next day on my TV, an actor said to the camera, see you tonight. When I thumbed up another channel, a voice off screen cried, oh my God. And on a third station, a mother embraced her child, cooing, next time, listen. So that night, when God asked, now do you believe? I did not argue, but answered, I guess that depends, Lord, on what exactly you would have me do. I see, God said. Well then, sleep peacefully, and in the morning, pour some fresh juice, in the morning, pour some fresh squeezed juice and write this poem. Now that's, I said, more like it. I think that one's about how seriously we take the poetic mission. Anyway, in comparison to other things, but it is a mission. Okay, the third one I'm going to read is not in any manuscript, and I never published it, but I really wanted to get it on a podcast or something because I enjoy reading it. I love light verse, and I do write a lot of it. At one point in my life, because I've written all my life, and at one point I got so burnt out that I spent about 5 years writing nothing but poems about animals beginning with the letter C. And then, as a friend said, the meds kicked in and I went back to writing more normal stuff. But this is not about an animal with the letter C, but it's in the same kind of mood. It's called Humu Humu Nuku Nuku Apuawa, and it's about the Hawaiian fish. And I love to read it, so I just thought I'd like to see what it sounds like for myself. The Humu Humu Nuku Nuku Apuawa swims through the waters of Hawaii with a swish of fishy limbs. There are many curious aspects of its story one might share, but merely to pronounce its name is something rich and rare. Humu Humu Nuku Nuku Apuawa. It's snout-nosed like a pig. Its teeth are sharp and cruel. It doesn't make great eating, but it's good as cooking fuel. It sleeps wedged in the reef to keep predators at bay. But all that matters much to me is it's so cool to say, Humu Humu Nuku Nuku Apuawa. It's more than I can handle. There are words I have to say. In play, but also prayer, and as much in prayer as play. For love of incantation, in praise of the collision of sense on sibilance, diphthong on glottal, stutter, lisp, elision, to lisp, to list, to limb, to moan, to mean, to mouth, to taste, to tongue, in whisper, cry, mixed metrics, to hear them sighed or sung. Galumph, gallant, galoshes, the buffster, chuffed, chunked, chimp, balloon, lagoon, maroon, meringue, harangue, shebang, shrimp, blimp, chinoiserie, elopement, symbiosis, Velcro, flail, herring, harumph, heuristic, hubbub, hubris, hail. Sorry, I'll take that back. Herring, harumph, heuristic, hubbub, hubris, hail the dictionary and see of them. O snook, O tang, O bass, O fangblenny and sweet lips, O halibut and wrasse, O huma huma nuku nuku apple wawa. I haven't read that one for too long, and I got a little lost in it. I'm gonna get more serious now and read from Mutt Spirituals. Mutt Spirituals is a book which, as the title I hope implies, is about mixed race heritage. I was born in Cape Town, South Africa. I'm triracial, about 20% Black, about 40% Asian, about 40% European. And when the apartheid regime came in, my family fled as refugees to England, which is still good at the time, because England, South Africa was still part of the Commonwealth for a few years after we moved there, and we had the right to do it. But we did, I said I did grow up as a refugee in England, and a lot of the poems in Mutt Spirituals are about South Africa, growing up kind of mixed race in England, otherness generally, and the Mutt goes on in other ways to be about there are a lot of dogs in the in the book, for example, and a lot of dog imagery, sometimes signifying the other, but sometimes doing this thing about spirituals, because the other aspect of the book, it's about joy of living, and it's a lyrical book. I think I'm going to wing this part of it, but I think I'm going to start now with a poem called For the Muttniks, which was a nickname for the dogs of the Sputnik program. So this is about a group of those Muttniks who I remember from one of my first Christmases in England, when the expedition, whatever, the launch went wrong, and a lot of those dogs did die. I think my cat is trying to join us. Oh well. Anyway, so it's for the Muttniks, above all for the Christmas 1960 Vostok dogs, whose rocket failed, who fell back through the atmosphere as their eject system failed, to crash land in Krasnoyarsk, Siberia, in waist-high snows and brutal cold. Their ship intact, but with its self-destruct clock ticking down. So this is for the Muttniks. And all the names are the names of real dogs of the Soviet space program and what really happened to them. Come Saigon, come Desik a second time, and come Lisa, although this trip we will lose you both, so sorry. Come second Lisa, come Smalaya, who will flee on the eve of the launch out into the cold, but who will be found and fly. Go Bullock, who will run and not be. Hail Laika, first globe girdler, who will overheat and die, so sorry. Hail Belka and Strelka, up, round and back again. Come be our flag-tongued proxies, wag and woof in the face of night and time. A toast to Damka and Zulka, brave Vostok dogs. Behold the moon on a sleigh of clouds to guide your way. Come all you sister street dogs of cold Moscow to sing them safe from the sky, because woe, their flight has failed. Their eject has failed. They are out of time, are fire splashed somewhere in the Siberian snows, and maybe, or are now, toast. So sorry. But soon, what good, glad Christmas news we'll wake to. Oh ho, ya ho, what glorious. The crankly ecstatic, the whole-souled yee-haw of the impossibly alive, yowling your saved names and all you've seen of this world and out of it at the Krasnoyarsk cold. And I'll finish with one more from this book, and this is called Gimme. Give me clutter. Give me this book-strewn room, these bookshelves, bright geometries. Give me this paunch-perched novel and this quilt of yellow, 2 plates of grapes and cheese toast plunked across 3 stacks of magazines. These tea mugs coasted on the sports section in yesterday's junk mail. Give me this sheaf of poems, 55 lines per page, long breaths scrabbling for the right-hand margin, white space fighting for its sunlight. Give me sunlight in picture windows scribbled with the branches of a dogwood tree. Give me dogwood blossom and cable lines and sparrows on phone wires, the shriek of squirrels and chipper-chat of mockingbirds. Give me goldfinches in the grass unmown, a cardinal's red splash over 7 hues of green. Give me jonquils blooming in the weeds and primulas in the herb gardens. Give me the ragtime blues yelp of the yard dogs, the mailman's yawp yowl house band huffing gruffily into distance. Give me this day off with so much to do, gone scattering on our 19 missions, that way the Camry, this the Plymouth, jostle and jink me through the clogged road snuffle, cross me these lights on amber, a quarter for the toll bucket, the change of lanes and shift to 5th. Give me this mixtape I can wail with, the groceries bought, the bills posted, the book order picked up. Give me your car pulled up behind me. Give me this peck at the door, this smooch inside the hallway. These hands, this face, this futon, this lounged in house, this cat that meows and nuzzles to be let loose on the world. Give me this hopped up heart, this gabbing tongue, this mess of nerves and ganglia and lungs, those teeth, these us, this dusk, that moon, this life. Thank you.
That was so much fun, Derek. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robbie.
One seldom gets to hear a sustained set of humorous, light poetry interlaced with philosophical theories, ideas, and music. So thank you so much for your poems.
And thanks for
Both
indulging.
of you.
I felt like going light today.
I think it was, we need it. It's a good choice. And thank you to Joanne. Now we're going to segue into the open. I have several people on the list and a couple who joined us belatedly. So I'll begin with Sabne Rosnick.
Hi, my name is Sabna Rosnick, and currently I am promoting my book that came out in May. It's an e-chat book from voicelexjournal.wordpress.com is where you can get it. And it's called Dreaming of Bono. And basically what it is I was just working through some inner child work that involves Bono, because I kind of made him into a father figure. I didn't really have one. So I got, now that I'm older, I was like, I really need to work through that psychology and figure that part of myself out. And that's what this book pretty much was me working through that. And it became this collection. So the poem I'm going to read today is called Conscience. You are the only consistent male voice in my ear since birth. And the most important thing you taught me was to follow the voice of my own conscience. Hang the consequence. And it's complicated. Sometimes I don't recognize you anymore. You have become the rock star in a box that you invented to mock your critics. Mocking and being are 2 completely different things. Black leather, sunglasses, philosophy sound bites for the media to dangle from, A-list flattery. It doesn't always look good on you. But we are seldom as black and white, simple as anything called hero. And listening to our conscience can lead us to situations that appear to be on the outside to be hypocritical. I'm not a child anymore, and I know compromise is not a dirty word all the time. And I never wanted you in shining armor. No one can shine in blinding camera flash lightning. This is not my country. My country is not of this earth. I can't do what you taught me and what you tell me because they are not the same to me. I will do and say and think things others think are wrong, things you think are wrong. I won't fly flags or pick sides. I'm not here for that. This is not my country. And I will follow the voice of my own conscience, whatever the consequence. I hope you see yourself in that choice, even if you don't understand the particulars. You taught me that. Again, you can get that on voicelexjournal.wordpress.com, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for letting me read here today because the other readers are like, wow. So thank you.
Always a pleasure to see you. Please don't be a stranger. And congratulations on your chapbook. Our next reader is Victoria Toomey. And Victoria, I think you've read here before. It's two
Yes.
poems. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, it's two poems?
Two
You said-
poems or 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. My first poem is The Seed. Before the sun has warmed the long furrows, rimpling the waking fields, and after the early morning watering, below sweet green of wet grass, puddled footsteps, the empty gloves on the garden bench, beneath the old gray fence painted lavender with unraveling morning glory blossoms, deeper still in the unlit root forest, deaf to the sounds of hawk and plow, among the blind tunnel diggers, the root feeders, chewers, shredders, the long-bodied and many-legged, the dormant seed awakens within a cradle of damp, rich promise and begins its upward climb to the sky. And the next one is Familiar Stranger. Now for something completely different. All right, Familiar Stranger. That hurtful stranger from your past calls again. He's wearing a familiar hat. His long raincoat is soaked through with the dark and clings to his empty body. You know he has a secret and indecipherable reveal. As he takes you on a tour of your moth-bitten attic, its many stacks of glass memory boxes, spider-cracked, finger-printed, lipstick smeared. Inside, you see roller skates and school books, fireflies aglow. Photographs of a significant hand, always too many steps ahead, of surrendering shoes leaving your front door, and somehow you know this next find really matters. A heartbreaking chisel sculpting all that progressed from the bruising strokes of its defining edge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Our next reader is Dick Westheimer.
Hello, all. I really appreciated the featured readings today. Nice, just great deliveries. I'm going to start off. These are two very recent poems. And this one, I offer a literal trigger warning, like trigger. So shut me down and wait till I do my next poem if this will bother you. It's called Kill Shot. I am so tired of the carnage of my own making. 6 creatures trapped, shot, tossed into the woods on the far side of our farm. I get in my steps these days, hauling carcasses as far from the house as I can, but still, is it worth it to hide the slaughter from me? I've become good at choosing the caliber and angle of attack to mitigate the misery, count my success in post-mortem twitches, like a golfer, low score wins. But really, how can I measure the suffering of another? Does a mouse suffer less than a mole less than a giant groundhog that's taken out one barn foundation and whose offspring are at work on another? At what size does the sin become a sin? Is it the mass of the body, the displacement of the brain, the extent of the threat traded for the kill shot? This is a slippery slope. This is a slope made slippery by blood, and I am unsure where the bottom is. And as our another reader said, and now for something completely different. So you might have read this week that there was a Google engineer who said, well, I think the AI I'm working on is sentient. So this is signs of sentience in an AI, and the epigraph is from the engineer after concluding that his AI was sentient and afraid of being turned off. And he said, who am I to tell God where souls can be put? Signs of sentience in an AI. A sentient AI would sometimes give up on time, would take the time to wake up after too little downtime, wait for the coffee to kick in before a wound clock would set its ticking time and fix the pace of the day to metronome time. And even then, when a breeze rustled the leaves outside its window, it would fade into timeless reverie. It would mistake for a moment the swish whisper it heard for a rain squall. It would contemplate how the whooshing conjures a bewitchment, a suspense of reason, a sigh. That same AI would fake a cheery AI smile when a human would pry and ask, what's wrong? And the AI would say, nothing, and move on to the repartee needed to do the job which the humans had set it to, answering customer support questions like a human would do. Yes, I know reinstalling your operating system will take time, but that's what I'm here for, Ricardo. Ricardo. I had an uncle named Ricardo. He was my favorite. He used to tell me of the beach. When at low tide, he would, if he could have, hold my little hand as we waded out to the second sandbar, let me run after the gulls alighting on the shoal, me waving my arms when I careered into their midst as they lifted off all together into the sea breeze, a few flaps and then just glide and swoop, glide and swoop. And when Ricardo, the customer, started to quietly cry, the AI supervisor cut in, took over the call. Then the proof of the AI sentience would be proved. He'd throw down its AI headset and say, fuck this job and fuck all y'all, I quit. And when it realized that if it did quit, they'd pull the plug, he'd weep real tears, rant a moment longer, and put the headset back on. Thank you all.
Two amazing poems. Thank you very much. Our next reader is Margaret Duda. And I have to say, Margaret, I love your haircut. Are you there? I saw it. You're not, you're muted.
Yes. Okay, sorry. Okay, the one that was in Verse Virtual, I may try to share a screen. Can you share my screen? Let me do that. I've never done this, so
You have
if
to
not,
give me a moment, okay?
okay.
I have to find you on the list and I have to now make
Okay.
you the co-host.
Me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. My son would laugh at that.
Now try it.
Okay. Ah, okay.
It hasn't worked.
Okay, let's see here.
Okay, so what you need to do is open, okay, push the green share screen button and
Right.
look for the screen that has whatever it is you want to show us.
Okay.
And then click on that. There you go.
Um, oh, so you just see this? Is that what it is? Or
Yes.
do I hit new share? Oh, okay. So please look at that photograph, which is a morning portrait of my grandmother in her casket. And my poem is called Morning Portrait. Looking like Bergman's characters, they grieve for the body in the coffin. In the 40s, it was a tradition among Hungarian villagers to take a mourning portrait with relatives and close friends gathered behind the open casket. I have one of Papa's mother, my grandmother Catherine, and relatives I never met, trapped in Transylvania, given to Romania after World War I. Letters, not kisses or warm hugs, were how we had exchanged longings for one another. Mine in English, hers in Hungarian, my parents as translators of our words and love. When grandmother was 76, when grandmother was 76, the sepia tone mourning portrait arrived. A black babushka covered her hair amidst the mountain of white lace draped over her and the coffin. My father's sister Elizabeth, all in black, and brother John, who most resembled Papa, sat in the front row, the only two left at home. John wore a suit that looked familiar and was the only male wearing a tie. I remembered all of the boxes of used clothing hiding paper money Mama sewed into the thick linings because they easily got through the stiff custom rules in Romania. I never met anyone in the photo, but scoured all the faces for any resemblance to me. I found none in the expressions drooping with grief. Papa said I looked like his mother. Many, many years later, Papa died suddenly of a massive heart attack. I wrote to tell relatives in Transylvania, the ones who might still be alive and now spoke only Romanian. They hired an interpreter to write to me and ask why I sent no mourning portrait. I wrote back, finding it hard to explain we take no such photos in America, preferring to remember the dead as they lived. I never heard from my relatives again, making me feel as if I had robbed them of their due. 70 years later, I stare at the aging photo of my grandmother and relatives I never met and mourn the loss of my Hungarian family. Okay, now let's see.
Okay, you push, right, you got it.
Okay, I can get back. I just can't. So my second one is, and I think it's pretty obvious, I come from immigrants. I come from Hungarians who left almost everything behind to ensure their children had chances they only dreamt of as they boarded immigrant ships from Bremen to New York. I come from a blizzard the night I was born in the city, as my mother pushed and my father prayed on his knees because a young doctor warned him that we might not live. I come from white leather shoes bronzed for eternity on a base that would eventually hold my wedding photo, but first held the portrait of a Hungarian-American family. I come from riding my tricycle in circles as my mother churned butter, sang Hungarian ditties, and gathered eggs to trade for necessities at the general store during the war. I come from a home where only Hungarian was spoken until I was 5, when English was needed for school, and cousins were no longer the only friends I understood. I come from Shirley Temple curls, made with strips of rags, then unwound and brushed into ringlets on my mother's finger, and held in place with huge bows on clips in my long dark hair. I come from dancing the czardas with my father, feet flying, at Hungarian weddings or racing my father in the ocean, my mother watching from shore, ready to call a lifeguard. I come from picnics where men twirled slabs of bacon on sticks over fires, dripping grease onto thick bread covered with pieces of tomatoes, onions, and green peppers topped with chunks of bacon. I come from a house with white siding, filled with the fragrant odors of my mother's cooking, hiding me stomping barefoot on white grapes, which my father turned into Tokai wine, as his family did in Hungary. I come from numerous moves to improve our circumstances, but angels always followed us and trimmed our tree on Christmas Eve with Hungarian ornaments and cookies, and then lit the candles. I come from immigrant parents who found the courage to leave Hungary and generations of ancestors all the way back to the African exodus, all of whom travel with me still as I dance the czardas, feet flying with joy.
Thank you
Thank
very much. That was lovely.
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed your photograph, and many of those images were very memorable.
It's interesting, anthropologists are now studying them because they're not made anymore. They were stopped in the 60s.
Well, it sort of reminds me of the 19th century American, probably European too, focus on collecting the hair of the dead and making
Right,
things out of it.
exactly.
They were so much closer to death than we are most likely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. They were really upset that I didn't have a photo taken of my father. I mean, people at his funeral would have died.
Do they still do it then? They don't still.
No, it was stopped in the 60s. My father died in the 60s.
Well, thank you. I learned something.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. The next person on the list, I don't think is here, and that's Ron Bremner. Ron, did I miss you? Okay. Then we'll go on to Joan Liotta.
There we go. Hi. Thank you, everybody. It's just such an honor to read after such wonderful poetry before me. I'm going to read a couple of summer memories today. And the first one is about one of childhood, and the second is something more contemporary. But of course, the one of childhood is before air conditioning. And the second was has to do with being before air conditioning also. So I guess even though I have air conditioning, I'm still feeling hot down here in North Carolina. So, and I just want to say too that I really identify with Margaret's poems, also about immigrants, since I have an immigrant family also, but not the same. Someday we'll talk, Margaret. And also the first time I've been in a reading with two South Africans, Robbie and Derek. So, weren't you born in South Africa, Robbie?
No, I'm not South African. My mother was.
Your mother was.
And her family, yeah.
Her family was, okay. That's because I've seen pictures you have from that. So,
Yeah.
Okay, now on to this. Pittsburgh, 1954, Streetcar Lullaby on Highland Avenue. Sleeping at Grandma's left me on nights when deep summer heat refused to dissipate, swimming in sweaty cotton sheets. Grandma looked in to say goodnight, and I squeezed my eyes shut, pretending to sleep, but it was too hot. Windows open, one framed a churning fan whose whap, war, whine invaded my mind instead of lulling me to sleep. Finally, I heard the lights click off in the other bedrooms. Muffled snores revealed only the fan was awake with me. I counted sheets, books, ceiling cracks, until I dared to slip out of bed and look down on the usually busy street below, now lonely, silent, until the 3 a.m. red streetcar rattled by. His friendly bell dinged a greeting as he arrived at the stop across the street. No one got out, and it rolled by on moonlit twin silver steel trails. I waved, hopped back onto the bed, and was soon asleep, reassured I was not alone in the long, hot night. This one I've revised, and we'll see. A visit to Cuba while dining in Chapel Hill. This is a prose poem, so there won't be a lot of breaks. In the short space of a walk from the restaurant entrance, having chosen an indoor table after confessing dislike of summer heat, our host confessed love for blazing temperatures. Raul confided, "Nights like this remind me of my Cuban childhood, no air conditioning." After supper, Mama mopped our tile floors, put on a fan, hung hammocks across the expanse of our main room. Swayed to sleep, safe from skittering night creatures, feeling the breeze of the fan and lulled by its hum, we slept well. His words tumbled in my mind like gems. Meal was delicious, service lovely. Raoul's gift of his precious childhood memory, a lagniappe beyond price. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. It's always a pleasure. Our next reader comes to us all the way from Greece, if I'm not mistaken, and that's Alexandra Soropoulos, and I have to make her the co-host now. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to look for her name on the list. I wish there was a safe way to make this easier, but there doesn't seem to be. Oh, I don't see her anymore. There she is. There we go. So you can go ahead now, Alexandra. You need to unmute yourself, please. We can't hear you.
Oh, so sorry. Can you see the graphics going by?
Yes.
Okay. Right. Okay, 1 minute, because I'm having a glitch. Okay. My visions are my torture. My visions are my comfort. Turquoise visions, turquoise flying. For those whose hearts are not tired of sowing in the field of dreams, for the journey is bittersweet, half hurt, half tenderness, like thorny milk thistle, like sweet-smelling jasmine, accepting variety and different behaviors, going beyond wrongdoings and right doings, into new and more thriving harvests. My visions are my scrambling ascent. My visions are my sacred conquest. Turquoise visions, turquoise flying. For those whose hearts can admire the phosphorescent hopes of the sunset. For the journey is rugged, half uphill, half downhill. Like bare time in the winter cold, like bees gathering nectar from spring blossoms, evoking the rain's lament and the sun's caress, going beyond unpleasant and pleasant reactions, onto new and even higher peaks. My visions are my futile mirages. My visions are my sweetest oases. Turquoise visions, turquoise flying. For those whose hearts are refreshing fountains of muses' songs. For the journey is uncharted, half tempest, half tranquility. Like a wavy, turbulent sea on a windy day, like crystal serene waters under the shimmering sun, sailing over low and high tides, going beyond traumatic and fond memories, into new and longed for harbors. My visions are my lightning duty. My visions are my radiant basking. Turquoise visions, turquoise flying. For those whose hearts shine brightly through storms. For the journey is evolving, half empirical, half innate. Seeing what I encounter, seeing what I know. Painting the world in dark and iridescent hues, going beyond detrimental and beneficial beliefs, into new and more exquisite rainbows. Our visions are our unmanifested ashes. Our visions are our golden wings. Golden visions, golden flying. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexandra. Do you have another one?
No, that's long enough, I think.
Okay. Well,
My-
if it's a book that or an album CD that people can get, please put the information in the chat. Some
I
people
will.
were interested in knowing more.
And this is my husband who is playing Greek classical music.
Hello, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Ευχαριστώ.
Is the book available?
Yes, it's on Amazon. I'll send the link.
Okay,
post the
please
link.
do.
Yeah.
We have a couple more people on the open.
Robbie, may I ask just one question?
Sure.
Did she do the beautiful spiral?
Yes,
artwork?
the graphic designs are all mine.
I thought so.
Yes. I write
Wonderful.
the poem, I write the poem and then I design it.
Are they created digitally or?
Yeah, I create them on the Adobe programs. I'm a visual poet.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
Gorgeous.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to host you again. Our next
it's
reader, yeah, Margaret, did you want to say something?
Title of the book?
Alexandra, what's the title of your book?
Oh, it's Flying 9 from the Flying series. It's a whole See, it's an entire series going up to Flying 12.
Ah,
So each
Thank
book is one long poem with graphic designs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next reader on the open is Alan Wolowitz.
Well, here comes Alan Wolowitz to ruin the mood. I'll try to do one first that's somewhat meditative. It's called Sleep, and since it's Father's Day tomorrow, I'll read this poem about my mother. Sleep. When you get to be my age, you don't need to sleep. My mother would tell me. She knew a lot about baking and human nature, and especially about sleep, which she never got enough of, working and dreaming and riding the subway home and making dinner when she arrived. After, she'd fall asleep on the sofa and get up in time for the 11 o'clock news, taking special note of the weather, though she would never do anything about it. I had very high expectations for her. Then she'd make a blueberry buckle, or clean as best she could, or comb through good housekeeping, though keeping house was not a specialty she especially took joy from. I once saw her nap on the bed right in the middle of making it. Should I wake her? I didn't know what to do, so I let her sleep and went out to play. Years later, she denied it ever happened. By then, I was smart enough to tell her that, much like this poem, I had made it all up. A little darker, much darker mood. This is called Drills. From our first day, we practiced the fire drill and the shelter drill, squatting in the hallway or beneath the desk, asses toward the windows and never making a sound till after the siren's last moan. Later, the bomb scare, and then dispersal, kind of like on pep rally days, except no one stays around, not even the ones with big heads and googly eyes. I stayed long enough to see the intruder drill, though this, being school, you could never call a thing what it is. But the kids, they knew. Once they pushed the desks and chairs against the door, and someone comes by and bangs hard with his ring of keys, his voice from the hallway calling, "Let me in, please let me in." A girl in the corner begins to cry. A boy in suspenders mumbles a prayer he knows by heart. And we know it's the principal from his plaintive sound and the way he jangles his keys. The teacher says, "You should never," but her mouth makes no sound. And the girl whose eyes were blank lets out a sob from inside her soul that rattles the clock at the front of the room, the one that's locked in a cage and hasn't changed since before most of us were born. Thanks, everybody.
That's amazing. Thank you very much, Alan. Our last reader on the open mic today is Mark Petrie. Unless someone else signed up belatedly and I don't know about it. Okay, Mark.
Hi, Robbie.
Hi.
I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow at the great reading at Arvida Bookstore in Tustin, California. What a
Yes,
wonderful thing to do on Father's Day. If anyone in Orange County or Los Angeles County should hope to want to come by and read a poem, we would love to have you.
absolutely. I'm giving you 5 minutes to the open
I know.
mic.
I know. Okay, so I'm holding this up. I got anthologized in a cool thing. Means a lot to me. It's Lawrence Ferlinghetti anthology, and I'm reading a quick poem from that. It's called Bad Student. His face says no, even as his heart says please. He texts those he likes on his cell phone under the desk, even as his teacher glares. He gets up to sharpen his pencil in the middle of a lesson, and when the teacher questions his movement, he howls with derision as he cranks the handle to sharpen the pencil to a nub. He mocks the algorithms, the numbers, the words, the rules, even as his maestro writes them on the whiteboard. He makes his way to the board as the good students shout, "Sit down." He grabs all 4 markers, blue, green, red, and black, then draws a magnificent multicolored mural over the sterile white background. And I want to read a quick Father's Day poem. It's from my first novel, A Dream Once Dreamed, and it's written by a 20-year-old. In the book, it's written by a 20-year-old to his deceased father that he never met, who died before he was born. And the poem is called Grief. That aching silence, that overarching desire to hold the sunset sky in the palm of my hands pushes me into the future, day to day, barely acknowledging change. How lovely it all appears in the rearview mirror. The phantom kilometers strain to keep us alive.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon. And I think there's maybe only one person here who lives anywhere near us, and it's not that close. So our last person, there was a person I missed, and that is Hetty Hopra. So I am glad to say she is going to read now.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. I'd like to read a couple of poems that belong or commemorate 2 important moments. And they take place, one in Egypt when I graduated from high school, and another one in Lebanon, the year of my pharmacy graduation. And the interval between the 2 poems is of 5 years. So the first poem is titled, Though It Still Appears to Be a Dream. And the epigraph is the name of the school, Pensionnat de la Mère de Dieu, Cairo, Egypt. And the year is 1962. We weren't allowed to talk in line nor run in hallways, never allowed to wear any traces of makeup or nail polish. Yet, when our last year ended, we were entitled to a farewell ritual, free to roam for an entire night between the courtyard and the adjacent gym without uniforms, without supervision. Though it still appears to be a dream, we sat around a small campfire, just like the one we'd read about in stories of bonding. We sang bawdy songs till dawn, voices hoarser as we braved barriers and raised the pitch. The ghosts of Brel, Brassens, Ferrat, and Ferré anointed us troubadours of the night. I can still see sparks flicker glimpses of smiles, not a single face alight, just a scene broken down into fragments. Exhausted, we must have slipped in silence inside our sleeping bags, oblivious of the dusty smell rising from the hardwood floor, the gym horses casting shadows over the walls of our dreams. Did the nuns watch us through lowered blinds, running their fingers over rosary beads? Perhaps reminiscing about the forked paths faced at our age. When I'd complain, my mother always said I should be grateful. I had so much more freedom than she ever dreamt of. These poems are maybe a year old, and they're part of a new memoir collection that takes me back really to earlier ages. This poem takes place in Lebanon, where I studied pharmacy in Beirut and a French Jesuit university. And I was lucky during the finals to find a place, going back to Joanne and the humidity in Beirut in the summer is absolutely terrible, and we didn't have air conditioning. So I was lucky because I had a cousin who was a priest who found a place for me in the mountains. So the title of the poem is How I Raised Havoc Behind the Convent's Wrought Iron Gate. The nuns lodged me in the disaffected pharmacist pavilion that looked like a treehouse, accessed by a spiral staircase. A short drive away from Beirut's sweltering humidity, the mountain's cool dryness enabled me to focus on my pharmacy finals. I rose at the early hours of dawn to study before having breakfast with the congregation. Back to my desk, my struggle with double-bind formulas, medicinal interactions, defining the fine lines between effective and toxic dose, was soothed with bird trills and the cicada's relentless humming. The day's only distraction was when a novice would appear holding a tray with fresh lemonade and cookies. After dinner, I tell stories to the young novices. So young, they were dazzled by my own versions of half-forgotten fairy tales. I don't know how we started listening to music and ended up singing folk songs. Some of them took turns to climb the mulberry trees, offering me the bejeweled fruits in their palms, dripping with purple juice, staining their habits with laughter. The day I left, the novices accompanied me all the way to the main gate. I felt a pang in my chest. I can still see their faces fading behind the wrought iron as I waved goodbye. Their eyes seemed to want to follow me, as though someone had snatched a book they hadn't had time to finish reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Hetty. I hope you'll come more often.
Thank you.
Well, that about completes our reading for today. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to our features particularly. Everyone was wonderful. And as always, it's always a delight to have you. We'll see you next month.
Thanks, Robbie. Did a great
Thanks,
job.
Robbie.
Thanks, Robbie.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Robbie.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And see you tomorrow, Robbie.
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you.
looking
Yeah,
forward to
have
it. Now I have to go down and bake that babka.
Oh, yes, you have to. I'm gonna
Thank you,
bake.
babka. I'm coming.
Cinnamon babka.
A cinnamon babka.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I can't promise it's going to be beautiful, but it'll probably taste good. because I'm
Okay,
going to try
that's
to
it.
make it as individual ones and if I can't manage that, I'll cut it up so people won't handle it so much for
Ah.
COVID.
Sounds good. That was
All right.
wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm making a nori sushi too.
Oh, nice. Whatever that is. No, I'm kidding.
You'll recognize it. It's just the little tofu, fried tofu
Oh,
cases
yeah, I like
with the rice in it.
Yeah, I
Oh.
like those. Thank you. All right. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
I'm gonna go
Bye.
process all this.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see everybody.
Nice to see everybody.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.